My name is Ruben Badalian, and I'm also your host of my podcast show called The Business of Languages and History. And this is my guest, Luke Ainstead, who is the author of The Musings of De La Pew, which is a 20-year investigation into the universe and all the topics related to that. So today, we're going to talk about other Balkan countries besides Serbia, like Bulgaria, Romania, Albania, Greece, and Turkey. Those five Balkan countries we'll talk about, and our next 5 episodes in the future. And then after that, we'll talk about Slobodan Milosevic and the other war criminals in Serbia, Yugoslavia during that time in the 90s. So without further ado, today we're going to talk about Bulgaria and its history. So, yeah.
I'm looking forward to it, Ruben.
Cool. Okay, so for our audience who don't know where Bulgaria is, it's a country located in southeastern Europe, like Serbia, and it's bordered by Romania to the north, Serbia and North Macedonia to the west, Greece and Turkey to the south, and the Black Sea to the east. So that's where Bulgaria is located. And it also has some ties with Russia because they have some similarities, like in the same way like Serbia is similar with Russia. And Bulgaria is also the
Do all their languages, Ruben, do all their languages have the same root? Do they come from the same? What are I mean? Because I know that some are like Roman, some are Roman languages, some are like
Romanian, Spanish.
Yeah, where are they from? Yeah,
Romanian, Spanish, French, and those, and Portuguese. Those are Roman
language. So their language is kind of similar.
Yes,
is that true? I'm not sure, Ruben. Is it true? Right. Is it okay?
Slavic languages like Russian, Bulgarian, Ukrainian, Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian, Slovenian. They're similar to each other. So, and it's also interesting of mentioning because Bulgarian tribes or Bulgarian people in the particular, they're of Turkish origin because some of the Bulgarian tribes originated from the Turkey. So interesting. So, before it was Bulgaria, it was called Thracia. That was a nation in southeastern Europe. That was under the Roman time. So that was 2,000 years ago. So that was Roman occupation for some time. And then after Roman occupation, Bulgaria would become under Ottoman occupation. And then so for 500 years. But before Bulgaria became under Ottoman Empire, it was an empire 2 times. Bulgaria was an empire 2 times because it occupied some parts of the Balkan Peninsula. It occupied Serbia, it occupied Greece, and it occupied those countries, basically. Yeah.
How big was the land? I mean, how big was their country in historic times? Has their border changed a lot over the years, over the centuries?
No, I mean, Bulgaria occupied some territory, but then once it came down, it just became very small. Bulgaria became very small, like it is today. Yeah.
And what kind of does Bulgaria have a history of communism in the 20th century?
Oh, yes, it has. Bulgaria has history, communist history in the 20th century, just like Yugoslavia, Soviet Union, Romania, Poland, East Germany, Hungary, and Romania, and the other nations that exist.
And people from Bulgaria, Ruben, that were trying to flee like their communist dictatorships, where were they going in the 20s? Where were they trying to get to?
Migrating to anywhere.
Anywhere? Okay.
Europe, Western Europe, United States.
Europe, yeah.
Kind of like the aftermath of the civil wars in Yugoslavia, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's also interesting of mentioning because their Bulgarian alphabet is very closely similar to Russian, and it sounds very similar to Russian.
Oh, really?
Bulgarian. And Serbian too. It sounds close to Serbian. Some words in Bulgarian, like how are you in Bulgarian is kaksi, but in Serbian it's kakosi. So it's very similar. In Russian it's kaksi a lot, so they sound very similar to each other. So yeah.
Can they understand each other, Ruben?
Yeah.
Kind of like, can they? Okay.
Like if it's a Polish person and speaking Polish to a Russian person, yeah, they could understand.
Okay. What about Bulgarian? If someone if someone speaking in Bulgarian, would a Polish or Russian person?
Yeah, they could understand very little of what they're
Okay.
saying. Even if it's Serbian too. If Serbian person speaking Serbian to Bulgarian, they can understand a little.
Okay.
But yeah, Bulgaria also had these chieftains. They were called Khans. Khan. They had those-
Khan?
Yeah, Khan. They had like these chieftains, basically like leaders of these tribes there in the 800s or something. So yeah. And yeah, and also during the Ottoman era in Bulgaria, Bulgarian people adopted a lot of Turkish words because Balkan Peninsula and Bulgaria was under Ottoman Empire for 500 years. And then also, yeah, they had a lot of conflicts with Hungary and Mongolia, because Mongolia, that was an empire in the Asia, and that reached from Asia all the way to Europe. So that was one of the largest empires during that time. So yeah.
You're getting a lot. I mean, in that part of the world, it's a clash between. Yeah, I mean, you're having a clash between more Caucasian, like people that are. I mean, more of the people that are traditionally known as white races compared to the Asiatic races. So I'm sure were a lot of, how much of the conflict do you think was based upon a difference in race and culture, Ruben? Because it sounds like that part of the world would be the perfect. It would provide like the perfect pressure cooker or climate for a lot of racial conflict. Is that fair for me to think that?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and then
Turkey, right, Ruben? Turkey is kind of known as Turkey is like the meeting place between East and West, right? I mean, someone who's a Turk, when they say strong is a Turk, because a Turk isn't really Asian, they're not really European, they're not really African, they're just a Turk because they just straddle, 3 different continents there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but we'll get into Turkey in one of our future episodes. So
sure. So yeah. I guess my question for Bulgaria is, what did their communist regimes? When did the communist regime end there, or has it even? Did it kind of mirror the fall of communism in Russia and Yugoslavia, or how did that?
Yeah, communism in Bulgaria came down at the same time as Yugoslavia and Soviet Union came down. So and also with Romania, Albania, Poland, and the rest of them during the Cold War era. So, well, Bulgaria was a really strong supporter of Soviet Union because they had the same ideologies as each other. And so they were against like church idea because they were both atheist nations, because that's what communism is. A communist nation is because they don't believe in religion. So religion was outlawed in Bulgaria and Soviet Union.
Oh, was it really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. But in Yugoslavia, it was a different story. Yugoslavia religion was allowed because Yugoslavia was a combination of both capitalism and communist nations.
So did they knock down the churches in Bulgaria, or did they just lock their doors, or what did they do with all the churches? And if people tried to still practice their religion, and I mean, probably specifically, would it be Christianity?
Yeah, Bulgarian religion.
Were they thrown in prison, Ruben, or what happened to them?
Yeah, they were thrown in prison. Yeah, during that time. And in the official religion of Bulgaria today is Orthodox Christianity, like Serbia, Russia, and Greece, basically. Yeah, and throughout history, like Bulgaria had a lot of wars with Serbia and Greece and Turkey during that time, and Romania. And then at one point in the 1870s, there was a war against Turkey, and Russia was fighting them. And so with the support of Russia, Bulgarian rebels were helping Russians to fight against the Ottoman Turks so they could liberate Bulgaria from the Ottoman rule and fighting Turkey, basically. So during that time.
Yeah, Turkey was at war with Armenia too. I mean, well, I mean, there was a genocide, right?
Yes, that's right. The Ottomans were committing genocides against Armenians and Turks and Serbian people, basically. They were targeting those 3 people.
Was it ethnic cleansing?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. the aggressor, basically. Turkey the aggressor, basically.
And they wanted to expand their empire too,
Yeah,
still,
that's
right?
right.
I mean, that was, yeah.
Like many figures throughout history, like Alexander the Great, Hitler, and all of them, Xerxes wanted to expand their empires, basically.
And you say Bulgaria, they trace their history back to the Roman times, right?
Yes, that's right.
Right?
And it's, yeah, because it was
and which countries? Oh, I was to say, what countries were they fighting? What countries were they fighting in most conflict back then? Was it Rome, or who were they? Did they have alliances with some countries back then?
No, I mean, yeah, Bulgaria was fighting like the Byzantine Empire. So Byzantine Empire, that was the East Roman Empire. They were fighting over that area, and then that was a Bulgarian Empire. There was a first Bulgarian Empire, then there was a second Bulgarian Empire, but they were soon crushed down. And then the first empire ended when the first Bulgarian Empire ended when one of the Byzantine empires destroyed the first Bulgarian Empire. And then the second one was formed. Second Bulgarian Empire was formed. And then the second Bulgarian Empire came down because the Ottoman Empire occupied the Balkans, and Bulgaria, the second Bulgarian Empire collapsed, basically. And that, needless to say. So.
When did Bulgaria adopt communism?
Well, after World War II, so 1945. So, and it's interesting of mentioning because during World War II, like Bulgaria refused to give its Jewish population to Hitler, and so Bulgarian people were saving Jews from the Holocaust, from Hitler's genocide killings of Jews, basically.
And what kind of government did they have before communism in 1945? Were they like a monarchy? Or?
Yeah, it was a kingdom, basically, like Romania and Greece, basically. Yeah. And ex-Yugoslavia.
So a lot of these, I mean, so they've been at war for territory, religion,
mostly
ethnic and racial identity has been, I mean, it sounds like a lot of racial identity and political ideology has been the driving force for most of the human misery over there, right?
Right, basically.
To me, right? Just people that can't get along with their neighbors because their neighbors either look different than them, or they practice their religion differently, or they just want to live a different lifestyle. They want to organize, they want to structure and organize their society a little bit different, and their neighbors don't approve of that, so they kill each other.
Even Bulgaria's been fighting war with Serbia too in the 1800s. That was like fighting to take more territory from Serbia, but then like Bulgaria won war because they defeated Serbia, and then they still had a lot of tensions with Serbs.
And you said that's in the 1800s.
Yeah, 1800s. That's right. Sometime 1880s or something. Yeah, they had a lot of conflicts with Serbs.
Was there ever a time in the past 2,000 years when that part of the world was at peace? I mean, has there ever been a time when they got along, or?
They perhaps tried. I'm not sure because I didn't research.
No, it's not easy.
They perhaps tried, but I don't know Bulgarian history that well that I do with Serbian history, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So a lot of these countries, the communist bloc, they all fell at the same time, right? When the Soviet Union came down, the rest of them came falling down too.
Yeah. So for example, like Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, Poland, East Germany, Romania, Albania, and Hungary. Yeah, they all came down at the same time. Communism came down in those areas, and all democracy started to take place there. Then, that needless to say. So then in the 1910s, that was also a time when there was also Bulgaria wanted to take more territory from the Balkans. They wanted to, and actually prior to 1913, that was when the Second Balkan War happened. So there were two Balkan Wars in the 1910s. So that was in 1912. That was when Bulgaria, with the alliance with Serbia and Greece, went to war against the Ottoman Empire. And then the Second Balkan War was 1913, and that was when a Bulgarian army turned their back on their former ally Serbia, and they attacked a Serbian army in Macedonia, and that's why they were fighting each other for a while. And it's interesting of mentioning because Bulgarian and Macedonians, they've been having like conflicts for some time because they were having like, oh, our language is same as yours. And they're saying, no, it's not. Your language is not same as ours and yours. So yeah, there's been a lot of debates between Bulgarians and Macedonian people. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So are most of those countries now, are they under democracies now? Or
yes, that's right.
Okay.
They're not communist anymore. Now, yeah, Romania. So we talked a little bit about Bulgaria. So maybe now we could talk about Romania.
Sure.
So
yeah, sure.
If you don't know where Romania is a country in Southeastern Europe, just like Bulgaria and Serbia. It's used to be a kingdom, and also Romania has, I think the name of Romania came from the Roman Empire, so that's why it's named Romania, basically. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and also, yeah.
Oh no, I agree. Yeah, just keep going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Romania, that's like, and a Romanian language is like, is also Romance language, so similar to like French, Spanish, Mexican, but not Spanish, French, Portuguese, and etc. So, so it's very, and Italian too. So because it's Romance languages. And so Romania was also under the influence of communism as well. So just like Bulgaria, Yugoslavia.
Were there any Slavic countries there, or countries in the Balkans that didn't fall under a communist regime?
No, most Slavic countries in the Balkans fell under
so yeah, can you think of one that didn't, or were there?
No, I know Yugoslavia did. I know Bulgaria did, but I don't know any other nations that fell under the.
Yeah, it may have been all of them. I don't know. It probably was all of them. I mean, that part of the world, but I don't know, Ruben. Yeah, but I think almost all of them did.
Yeah, and then like I mean, there was like one time in the 80s, like when communism was starting to fall down in Eastern Europe, and then one of the Romanian dictator, Nicolae Ceausescu, he was shot, I remember. It was on live TV.
He and his wife, right?
Yeah, that's right. Nicolae Ceausescu and his wife, the Romanian dictator, was shot on TV after he attempted to escape from Romania. When the Cold War was coming to an end, basically. So that was on TV. So I don't know if you remember it because that was such a long time ago. So.
Yeah, I don't remember it. I don't remember it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the people who were there probably obviously remember it because they lived through that time during the Cold War. And so, like Romania was prior to World War II. I mean, during World War II and prior to World War II was also a kingdom, and so and then basically it maintained like relationships with with Israel and the Middle East. Basically, Romania did. They kept good relations with each other during that time, the Cold War era. So, yeah. Trying to think of what else to say. Oh, it's also interesting of mentioning because Bulgaria has like kind of like some weird traditions. They have like when you say yes, you go. They have like you shake your head, like when you say yes, you go no, like that.
Oh, really? That's unusual. Wow.
That's yeah. When you say yes, you go.
You go like that. That means yes.
But when you say no, or no, actually, when you say yes, it goes like no. Well, when you say yes, it's yes. No, like no, like that.
That means no.
Yeah, it's very unusual tradition that Bulgaria has. So, yeah, how to say no and
that's very unusual.
Yeah, it is very weird tradition. And also, some of their churches actually came from Russia, Bulgarian churches came from Russia. The Russians gave them that, basically. Yeah. They have some similarities with Russia.
And are most of those countries Catholic or Protestant, or some of them some of them have a Muslim population too?
No, that's like Turkey.
Oh, Turkey, yeah.
And Bosnia too.
Because I know Bosnia has some Muslims, yeah.
Yeah, 50% of Bosnia's population is Muslim, so that's right. And so no, Bulgaria and Romania, they're not Catholic nations. They were Orthodox, basically. Like Serbia and Greece and Russia.
So yeah, Orthodox. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, like Eastern Orthodox.
Yes, that's right. So what else? Romania, and then also what is it? Also Bulgaria had a government. They wanted to force all Turks to change their name to Slavic names, basically.
Oh, really?
To erase their identity, basically. So,
yeah, they're rewriting history.
Yeah, that's right. Well, during the Cold War era, that's what the Bulgarians were trying to do in the 80s, when the Cold War was coming to an end. So, what else to say?
Well, you want to wrap it up now, Ruben, or you want to talk a little bit about Turkey?
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about Turkey. So, like, Turkey was what was it? Yeah, Turkey was Ottoman Empire, basically. So they were carrying out a large genocide campaign against not Albanians, against Armenians, Greeks, and Serbs. Basically, that's what they were doing during that time. It was a brutal campaign, and they were also having some conflicts with Armenians because they were fighting over Mount Ararat, because they were saying no, Mount Ararat is Turkey, and the Armenia was saying no, Mount Ararat is Armenia, it belongs to Armenia. So
have the Turks ever had any allies? Who have they ever gotten along with, the Turks?
I'm not sure, because I
can't think of any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar. So yeah. And so Turkey during World War I was allies with Germany and Austria-Hungary, because Turkey at the time was called the Ottoman Empire, so it was not Turkey at the time. But prior to that, Ottoman Empire all started when the Byzantine Empire collapsed sometime in 1453. So that was when the Byzantine Empire was collapsed, and that's when the Muslim Turks, took over Constantinople.
I was going to say that was the fall. Was that the fall of Constantinople too?
Yes, that's right. In 1453.
Right, yeah.
When Muhammad the Conqueror, I think that's who conquered Constantinople, and that's how all Constantinople, or the Byzantine Empire, came under Ottoman Empire, and that became Ottoman Empire. So yeah.
Very interesting.
And then they wanted to expand the Ottoman Empire. They went into the Balkans, some parts of Europe they occupied, and then all Balkan Peninsula would be under the control of Ottoman Empire for 500 years, basically. So for 5 decades, no, not 5 decades,
5 centuries.
5 centuries, I meant to say. 500 years it was under their control. Yeah.
And what got you interested in this part of the world, Ruben?
Just hearing the reports of some of their similarities with Russia, so that's why.
Well, it's because just a despicable ideology, the ideology of communism, the idea that the government is going to dictate every move people make in their lives. It spread like a disease. It was just a disease. It was a pestilence across the land, and more untold suffering. Easily tens of millions of people have died under that ideology. It's a disgusting abomination of an ideology. That's what communism is. Just in case anybody in our audience was unclear on that, that's what communism is. And it's come to the United States too, and that's why we spend so much time just talking about these atrocities, right, Ruben? Because that's what they are. These are atrocities that we have been just talking about in these podcasts, and it really all stems from communism.
Mhm.
It's the
Yeah,
sickest ideology ever.
yeah, it is.
It is.
Yeah, even
It's unfortunate.
yeah, in Romania, like people during the Ceausescu era was really awful because like people who were against like the communism in Romania would be locked up in prison, like gulag, like in
Yeah,
so.
when you can't speak out. Yeah, they eliminate the
That's,
voice of dissent, so you can't speak out against the people in power.
yeah,
Because the
that's what
people,
they were
and you know why they
doing.
do that, Ruben? It's because the people in power know that they are wrong.
Yeah,
You know, if you and they are weak in their position, they have no conviction. Because if a person has conviction, they're not afraid to have opposing ideas aired publicly. Because if they have the courage and they have convictions, they then they will have the, not just the belief, but they will have the confidence to,
yeah,
they will have the confidence to hold up their belief system, their ideologies
yeah,
against opposing um, ideologies and political systems, and say, hey, this is where our system is better. We can show you why it's better, and we can argue for it. But because they have no argument, that's why they want to eliminate the voice of dissent, because they know that they are wrong, and somewhere in their heart of hearts they know that they are wrong, but they don't care either.
yeah. Even in the Soviet Union too, like all like information about like a certain event like Chernobyl or the death of a certain leader like Brezhnev, Chernenko, or Andropov, they kept that all a secret, and then they did not want it to reveal to the people. It was like keeping it, like people was like living in a cocoon basically, because they were not getting in any information from the outside or from
That's how people operate when they know they're guilty.
Yeah, that's basically, that's correct.
That's what they do.
Awful.
And people aren't learning those. People haven't learned the lessons of history because the United States and other parts of the world are repeating the same lessons.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, they're repeating the same mistakes. You know, they have a government that is out of control and doing everything it can to expand its powers. You know, and people just lay down. People will they just take it.
Yeah,
and it's a shame. It's a shame that people can't learn from history. So
right.
maybe one day.
Yeah. And so like now we talked about Bulgaria, Romania, so maybe let's talk about Greece, because I mean Greece has a much interesting history because it was never under communist era, so it was probably like it's also the birthplace of democracy basically, because
yes, it was. That's right. Yep.
That's where all democracy is from originally. So,
that's very true. Yep.
And that's the only place that never fell under communists. So.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite the. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, from what I know, and so they have that. So like I mean Greece was under occupation by like Persians and Turks for a lot of times, like the Achaemenid Empire. They were occupying these Greek state cities, and then Alexander the Great came to liberate those cities, and then he destroyed all Persian Empire, Alexander the Great. But his father Philip wanted to take over. He had planned a conquest of the Persian Empire, but it never happened because he died. Someone killed him, basically, Philip of Macedonia.
All right.
And then what was it? Alexander died very young because it was in 323 BC when he was in Babylon, because he had like a fever. He
33 years old.
Yeah, that's right. 32, I think, from what I recall.
Or maybe 32. Yeah, maybe it was 32 years old, something like that. 32, 33, somewhere around there. Yeah. So maybe 32. Yeah.
Yeah, he conquered that area, and then he fought many battles in Persia. I think it was Issus, and I don't remember the other battles he fought in. He fought Darius. That was one of the Persian kings there. He fought against. And then he was also made the pharaoh of Egypt, I think.
Alexander was.
Yeah, he was. That's right.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Because he went to Egypt, and then he named the city Alexandria.
That's right.
That's right. And then I think at one point during his young life, when Caesar was probably maybe in his 30s, he looked at a statue at Caesar. I think it was during his time when Julius Caesar was in Spain, and he looked at Alexander. He said, Alexander has accomplished something. And this was when Caesar was 30 years old, or 33, I think. And Caesar looked at the statue and he said, Alexander the Great has conquered something, and I have achieved nothing yet.
Oh, wow. He said that when he was 30. Yeah.
When Caesar was 30.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then, what was it? Also, Romania was under a Russian Empire for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And then also Albania, Albania I was planning to talk about. So Albania, communist relations with Albania and Soviet Union was like deteriorated because like no, not Soviet Union. Albania was like developing relationships with China, and that's how the relationships with Soviet Union and Albania deteriorated, because they were developed relationships with China.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they turned their back on each other. So after Stalin died.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like a nation was betraying each other, basically. Turning their backs on one another. Yeah. That's right. I think. So yeah, we talked about those countries for some time. So
a lot of subjects, right? And I think what I see and what I've heard is that it just comes down to the atrocities of communism.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
our government, even not just communism, but governments. I mean, a lot of this comes from the institution of government and how corrupt it is. I mean, it's corruption too. It's the institution of government is corruption incarnate. That's what it is. It is corruption made manifest on the world. I mean, and people can't see it. They just can't see it.
Blinded by
right
it.
in the face. What's that?
Blinded by it.
They're blinded by it. Yeah, people say, oh, the coronavirus, COVID-19 locked down the world. No, COVID-19 didn't lock down the world. Your governments did. And it's self-evident. A 2-year-old can understand it. It's staring people right in the face, but they can't see it. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah.
Blindfolded.
That's right.
People have a blind on their head and they can't see it.
That's right.
Yeah.
If they saw anything less, they would be blind.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So. All right, Ruben. Well, do we want to wrap this up? It looks like we're getting a little low on time.
Yeah, so future episodes or next episodes, I'm trying to think about, maybe talk about, since we talked about those countries, trying to think of what else. Yeah, we could talk about the Milosevic era, like when he was in power and during the civil wars in Yugoslavia, because we haven't talked about that in our last episode. And we could talk about other political figures in Yugoslavia during that era and the civil war in the 90s.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to it then.
It's great.
Okay. Do we want to wrap this one up for now, or do you want to share a little bit more here, or?
Maybe share a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, democracy is a much better ideology compared to communism, because like people have the right to speak in a democracy. So yeah.
At least theoretically. I mean, people say that the United States is a democracy, but things are changing quickly. Yeah. I mean, people aren't allowed to speak here without fear of the threat of government persecution.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, during the 90s, like it was like 90s and late 80s, early 90s, like democracy was spreading to like many European countries, like a religion almost. I mean, it wasn't a religion exactly, but it was spreading like one to like European countries that were under communist beliefs, basically. Yeah, that's right. Now, fascism, I mean, we've seen fascism in Germany, and I'm trying to think of where else we've seen it before. Italy too, and I'm trying to see where else do we see fascism in. I mean, those were the only two nations I could think of that were fascist. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, fascism is basically kind of like communism almost. I mean, same like communism, because you don't have the right to speak, and then you could be thrown in jail for saying something. I think. It sounds like you're typing something.
Oh, nothing. Something popped up. I've been having issues with something called Google Drive, and it keeps popping up, and I'm trying to stop it from happening.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Ruben. Well, that's probably a good place to wrap up for today. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's good.
All right.
Anyway, I'll probably.
So we will pick up with you say Milosevic next time.
Milosevic, Radovan Karadzic, Ratko Mladic, and Arkan, and the rest of them. So yeah.
All right. Okay, Ruben. Well, we will talk about that next time. Okay.
Cool.
All right.
All right.
I will see you later then.
See you later.
Okay.